Okay. Can you
Hi. Yeah,
hear
I
me?
can hear you. I can hear
Great.
you. Awesome. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm pretty stoked because Annah Garrett, right, connected us.
Yeah, Anna. Yeah, I love Anna.
I just met her in December on this show, and I had so much fun talking to her. So I was like, yes, this will be great.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, she's such a doll. Oh my God.
Yes, I love her. It was so fun.
Wait,
Okay,
how did you
so
guys?
I've never met you either, but for the audience who doesn't maybe know you, can you tell us a little bit about what you do in the music community and what you're doing now? Because that's fun.
Yeah. So my name is Megan, and I've been working in the music industry since I don't know 2012, 2013, just like doing various um, kind of doing a lot of like different stuff. I mean, I'm sure if you work in the music industry, we all kind of have to be a little utilitarian to kind
Yeah.
of find our niche. So I've done a lot of different, I guess my focus has been in live concerts, live events. It's kind of how I met Anna. Was working festivals, and through the festival here, I'm going to try and put you up here, see how this goes.
Cool.
Yeah, and through my work doing festivals, I kind of started this nonprofit with some people called Harmonia.
Nice.
We are a nonprofit that we're like harm reduction centered, psychedelic harm reduction specifically. So we kind of like create safe spaces at music festivals to kind of like help people who went a little too hard in the paint.
That's like my dream. I have a book from MAPS that's like all about how to be able to do that and do it successfully. So
Yeah, we have that book too, girl.
yeah. Okay, well, I'm gonna have to have like a much deeper conversation with you later, but for now, like that's super cool. So how long have you been doing that specifically?
Yeah, we've been doing that for about 5 years pre-COVID. It
Whoa,
would have been our 5th year, I think, this year. I am doing
cool.
it.
That,
Yeah, we're based in Nashville, North Carolina. We've got like a little group
oh, so
of
you know Nick Heller?
two.
Do you know Nick Heller? Heller? Or Hell? I
Mm-hmm.
think that's his last name.
I don't
I feel like
know,
he's from
maybe.
down there. And I feel like he does that too. I don't know, but it's for a different, it's not for that group. But
Okay.
anyway,
Oh,
I was
I
like,
didn't know there was more of us in Nashville. We should team up.
I know. I was like, hey, maybe they know each other. I don't know. But yeah, that's so rad. That's seriously my dream. I want to do that so bad. So that's super cool. So 5 years is a long time too, considering the culture around that specifically, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and like
Mm-hmm.
in this
Yeah,
country.
when we kind of got started, Maps was like the only Maps, and there's a couple of other like Whitebird, I think, like couple other West Coast groups and Canadian groups doing it, but no one like really doing it what in the way that we do it, where we set up like a lounge and then we have people kind of sit with you, have like the sitter
Yeah.
kind of set up.
Yeah.
Um, but it's definitely gained a lot more traction, this
Yeah.
idea of safe spaces, and as kind of psychedelic medicine gains traction,
Yeah.
they're kind of growing together. So
What drove you to do that?
um, well, so I have a degree in psychology. That's like what I went to school for before I got kind of like wrapped up in the music chaos of music industry, which is way more my speed than like being a therapist is. But I have my own, mental health things and like trauma that I've found like significant healing through psychedelics. Um, so that paired with music, and then just working for really big festivals that didn't have kind of safety protocols for people. Like I went to a lot of burns, and they're kind of big on the harm reduction thing. So like going from burn culture to music festival culture, where some places are more so than others, kind of like we kind of saw space for it and a need for it where no one else was really taking action, and just kind of found ourselves like having a foot in the door in the industry, working with these festivals, kind of, found out that we had like a space and an opportunity to create something where other people might not. So
Yeah.
that's kind of like what got us started. on the whole thing, and then it just kind of grew from there.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's so cool. I had an experience where I could have benefited from your services and
Me
it
too.
yeah, and it went a different way and like that was traumatic, like if
It's
they handle
scary.
it, in
It's
certain
scary
ways.
to be because like festivals and like big music events. There's so many people. It's just kind of like the Wild West, and having that kind of support. Yeah, you don't really see it that much, and
Mhm.
a lot of people could really benefit from it because it puts us in really scary places in our minds.
Absolutely.
Um, so yeah, I'm kind of similar to
Oh,
you,
no.
like where I had an experience where I could have benefited, and I was like, why don't we like have this?
Yeah.
And when we work in the industry, I'd worked with like a lot of medical and security teams who ultimately end up being the people who have to deal with it, and like
Yeah. And they don't know how.
they either don't know how or their time is better served not doing that,
Yeah.
because like
Yeah.
when you trip to someone, you're with them for like hours, and
Absolutely.
like they're like you got to be with them a lot of, especially the more extreme cases, for multiple hours, where like medical professional, if they have to choose between that and saving someone's life, like where is their time better served, you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah. That makes
and
sense.
then you all and then you also have the other scenario of people like security teams or outsourced medical security teams that like
Yeah.
have never been around people on drugs and have no idea how to deal with it, and which we work with a lot, and that's actually a really fun part of our job that I really enjoy, is like working with inexperienced people and educating. Like we get to educate the medical professionals, which is kind
Yeah,
of a
which is awesome.
place to be, because usually they're like the ones calling the shots, but then
Mhm.
when you have them kind of coming to you asking you what to do because they have no idea, it's kind of like, oh, there's room for education, there's room for this here, and
Mhm.
there's room for growth here, and people like that like want to learn. Like we've had, actually, at the festival that I met Anna at, working for the Tipper and Friends event, they really like they really put harm reduction like on a pedestal in a way that I really wish other events did, because I think it like translates to the energetic of their event as a whole being a safe space when they put that much precedence in it.
Yeah.
um but like some of the medical teams we've worked with, they're like local EMS guys and
Yeah.
local EMTs, and they deal with like, because of like, they deal with a lot of opiate stuff, but
Mhm.
not so much the psychedelic stuff. So
Yeah.
they learned a lot from working with us. And we even had this one guy, and I know I'm kind of like getting off on tangents. I
No,
just
please
get
do.
really excited.
Please do.
But we were working with this one team, and we ended up like staying late because we had this one Spunion dude who just like didn't have any of his shit, and the festival was over, and he got left, and it was a whole big thing. And by the end of it, we'd gotten pretty close with the medical teams and the security team, because we all had to like triage these crazy scenarios,
Yeah.
and it had like profound effects that I can't really, like, you would never expect, like, yeah, of course we know we're holding the space for these people, but like the education, for example, we had this one guy, he like works in substance abuse, and that's like his day job. He like does the event stuff on the side. He was like, he's like, I've never seen like harm reduction done like that. Like we could use this in what I do for a living, and just like, so when you hear stories like that, it's just like really moving, and like, yeah.
That's
I
huge.
don't know.
That's so cool. No, that's incredible. That being able to I mean, you see it everywhere, right? Like in the news. This whole like the whole last year has revolved around like a conversation has obviously been pandemic, but also like social justice and how the police handle the public when they're inebriated or they're tripping or whatever the
Mhm.
situation is, and they don't know how to handle it. I work with well, I did until I had my baby. I worked with kids with special needs, and it was the same thing where we had to do like a lot
Mhm.
of prevention and de-escalation training that
Oh wow.
which I don't think that's what you're doing, but like just being aware that like mental health is a different thing, and like you can't just force someone to like comply all the time because they don't have the wherewithal to comply. So like then murdering
Yeah.
them is not an okay solution to that problem, and it's just, it's awesome that you can also bring awareness to that too, because I think when you are so close to like EMS and all that, they don't always have someone that they trust to talk to. They're not going to listen to like necessarily just a festival goer about it, like, oh,
Hmm.
how should I handle
Well,
this?
and they don't. I'm wearing my jacket inside out. um, yeah, and sometimes they don't even listen to us, because like at the end of the day, who are we really? We're not. I'm not a trained medical
Sure.
professional, but like when we get into situations where we kind of like, we advocate on the behalf of the festival for the patrons, so we like, so we've like get into situations where we kind of have to like force our way in, like
Yeah.
there's one event where they were like harm reduction, what, and
Yeah.
like kind of like wouldn't talk to us or like let us
Yeah.
help, and then we kind of just like stayed persistent and just kind of tried to keep like helping in the ways that we could, and by the end of it they were like super relying on us,
Yeah.
once they could see with their own eyes like how effective what we were doing actually physically was, they were
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, like, okay, I guess,
Yeah.
yeah, what should we do with this person?
Yeah.
you
You
know
clearly know what you're doing. Like it's you don't it doesn't take a lot to notice the change in like energy basically once you can bring someone down from like a panicked
yeah.
or, worried state. It's
Yeah, I
scary.
think it's just like, people in uniform, they get so like locked into this idea of like having to be responsible, and like they want a certain outcome. They're like, this has to be this way, but if they approach it, and if there's like, they're open to a different kind of approach, they will get the result that they kind of are hoping for, which is a
Yeah.
more subdued, compliant person,
Yeah.
by using tools like de-escalation, like compassion.
Yeah.
I think de-escalation is huge. It's not. It is what we do to a certain
Yeah.
extent.
Yeah.
Like especially when you're dealing with the really high energy people who have like taken way too much and they're on stage trying to unplug speakers. True story. That happened. um.
Oh,
Yeah.
jeez. That would be intense. That would be an intense one to bring back.
Happens more often than you would think. People get really high on like LSD, and they're like going through this like this this whole experience
Yeah.
about the nature of the entertainment industry or whatever being hedonistic, and they're like, this must stop. Like this one girl was like, we have to end it, and I'd actually had like previous experience of someone else trying to unplug speakers and stage equipment, like literally getting on stage with DJs and like pulling their shit out. And we were trying to like um contain this girl to like our space here, and we had like a security person outside, and like we're like you have to calm down,
Yeah.
and she looks at me, and then she just fucking bolts out the door. No one can grab her. She just like takes off running, and I'm like, just because of the things that she was saying, she was like, this is wrong, this is, we have to fix this. I was like, I bet you $20 she's going to the stage right now. And I told security that, and they went to the stage and they found her like on stage, like trying to pull out like the power cons to the back of a speaker. I was like, oh my god.
Whoa. That's intense, but I never got there. I've never been there. But that, I mean, I could see it. Festivals are a weird spot too. It's not just like recognizable life because everything's kind of a trick, right? Like everyone has like their own festive vibe, right? That's not who they are in regular life at all, because you could be
Yeah.
like a different person.
Person.
No one knows you. So then you've got all
But
these
you still have
people.
like the values that you come.
Yeah.
Sorry, I
Yeah.
didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good. You're so right. Um,
Yeah.
I don't even know what my point was really. It's just funny because like I could just see people like tricking themselves based on like the production side of it. You know what I mean? Like the decorations, the
Mm-hmm.
lights, and like getting lost in that even.
Oh yeah.
Are
Oh,
there rides?
absolutely.
Have you ever worked at one with rides?
with rides, like
Mhm.
Ferris wheels.
Yeah.
hmm
Does that
Well,
ever
just
affect
just
anyone?
like a Ferris wheel, like not like I guess like Swanee's had the Ferris wheel. That's like the only ride I've really seen. I
Yeah.
feel like most people. I haven't done Coachella. That's what you're asking.
I haven't either. I don't know anything about Coachella. But no, at summer camp for like 4 years or something, they had like a bunch of rides, right? And I was just wondering if that ever affected anyone, anyone needed help after that. Because they had some weird ones, where you're like getting bonked around. I don't know. But okay, so when I started the show, I wanted to talk to women about their triumphs, traumas, and their personal evolution in the music community. Um, but I never want to pick the topic. So, like, does anything resonate with you there?
Sorry, I'm looking for a pop. Um, Trials, triumphs, traumas. Um, yeah, the music industry is a crazy place.
Yeah.
There's definitely okay. I've had quite a few traumas through working in the events industry. There's certain festivals. I guess they're not really things anymore, so I could probably tell you what they were. But that were just like less than ideal, pretty like apocalyptic situations, like Fire Fest, but like before Fire Fest was a thing.
Oh.
Like there's like uh one festival called the Hudson Project, and that was pretty like traumatizing. It was just like that one was pretty rough. There's just like this big storm that came through and like displaced a bunch of campers, and there wasn't really like effective emergency plans in place, and it just turned into like, I don't know, Dawn of the Dead. It was like riots everywhere, looting, and just like you
Whoa.
couldn't like contain the people, because like what happened was there's this big storm that came through, and I was working on the campground crew at that point in time, and so we're like in direct contact with patrons in the campground, and like there's like this storm coming through, and they wanted to evacuate everybody. They didn't really have evacuation plan. They had like everyone's cars were parked 2 miles down the road, and then they stopped running the shuttles while they're evacuating people. So it was like a lot of questionable logistics going that were happening that just like created this like whole chaotic atmosphere. And it just like happened to be the day where Tipper and Bass Nectar were playing, like the same day. And it was like a few hours before those sets were gonna start. So like everyone had already like consumed all of their substances, and
Yeah.
it's kind of like day 3, so they're already strung out.
Mhm.
And um, and it was just a recipe for disaster. I mean, no one really had the mental capacity to even think about evacuating, and then like the logistical obstacles that were in place to keep them from actually getting to a safe place, um, created, yeah, just like a lot of, I mean, there was like screaming, crying, so many situations of people just not being able to like hold their shit together. And
Yeah.
it got to a point where we as staff kind of gave up even trying to evacuate, because it came down to like our safety. Like we were having stuff thrown at us, and people were
Yeah.
cursing us out and like arguing. And then like as soon as the sun went down, it was like all hell broke loose. It
Yeah.
was like kind of like what you expect to see in a movie. Like I couldn't believe it was real. I was looking around and was like, this is wild. Have you ever seen like Mean Girls, where it's like where like everybody's like at the watering hole like fighting and just like being crazy wild animals? It was
Yeah.
like that, but with like, I don't know, 50,000 people.
Oh my God. That would be terrifying. That would be so scary. 50,000?
I think that's what that festival was. It was between 30 to 50.
And
It
there's
was
not
it
an
was a lot of people.
evacuation
It
plan.
was like the Flaming Lips, Tipper, Bass Nectar, like all of these
Yeah.
really big, heavy hitting
Yeah.
artists. It was a banging lineup. Like
Yeah.
Atmosphere was there, Modest Mouse. It was amazing.
Rad, but so scary. That reminds me just of summer camp because it's in the Midwest. It's in the middle of Illinois. And you're just
I've
like,
been to summer camp.
have
I
it's
worked for
my
summer camp sometimes.
Huh? Yeah. How many? How
I
many?
worked for. I did. I think I've worked one year at summer camp, and then I've been to Fun for One.
Nice. That's
I
cool.
actually stopped and at the last one too.
Nice.
So you're up there with all the Chicago kids.
Oh
Are you
yeah.
in Chicago?
I was Northwest Indiana, but only like 30 miles from Chicago, so right up
Oh, okay.
there. Yeah. But summer, yeah, that shit is always so scary because it's like, any thunderstorm rolls through and all of a sudden you got to worry about tornadoes too. And it's just like, we're sitting in a parking lot in a field with like literally nowhere to go for miles, right? Like there's nothing around there. There's
There's
a
nothing.
couple of like gas stations and stuff, but it's 30,000 people there. Like where are they going to go, You just
Yeah.
hunker down in your vehicle and cross your fingers.
Yeah. I remember, I think it was last year, maybe 2 years ago, because we didn't have it last year. I was like working on, I was working in like the Soul Shrine kind of area,
Yeah.
and we had like a tornado during load in, like the day before the festival opened, that like our production back like a whole day, and then a tornado on the loadout where I was like chasing around like spreadsheet inventory,
Oh
trying to like
God.
not lose track of our inventory
Yeah.
while we're like trying to hunker down for a tornado inside of a metal box.
Yeah. Yeah. What are we gonna do?
Like,
Probably
what are
not a
we
whole
gonna
lot. Just cross your fingers, hope it doesn't hit you. Cause it might,
do? Yeah.
that's the weird thing about tornadoes is it could fuck up like one tent and then not do anything to the rest of the whole festival. They just hop around. It's so weird. It's just terrifying. That reminds me of the Umphreys drive-in too with the hurricane. It's so scary when that happens and you don't know what to do. Like, oh
Yeah.
shit.
The weather is definitely a force to be reckoned with, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't know how it is in the South, like further south, but in the Midwest, it's just like, you have 2 good months where you don't really have to worry about like anything. It'll be really hot, but at least the weather will be stagnant. Anything else, and you're like, it's either a tornado or a snowstorm or a rainstorm or it's cold.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Either
Yeah.
way, it's humid as shit and gross. I'm like, I'm in Colorado. It's dry. My hands hate it, but at least it's not humid and sticky. But
Mm-hmm.
Does Asheville have, are you close to the ocean? I don't know that area. I don't know where you're at. You're far from.
Like 4 hours, I think, is the closest
That's
ocean
so
beach.
bad. But
It's
it's
not
not
bad,
like,
but
not
not
like
close
day
either.
trip. Let's day trip
Yeah.
to the ocean. Oh man,
Overnight
I need to
trip.
get out there. I've heard really great things about Asheville.
Yeah.
And
Post COVID, come on down. You do lots of fun stuff down here.
I know I'm stoked because I've been doing these. So I met a girl, Megan, I believe her last name was Baker, and she works Suwannee. She does like Halloween and a few other like Florida. There's like, I can't remember the name of the festival, but it's like a Florida locals festival kind of thing, like local music stuff. So I'm like, oh cool, I can go to Buffalo and I know people there, and then I know people in Florida, and now I know people in Nashville. I'm like, I'm gonna bop around and just like, how fun would that be? A women, wine, and song like tour. Just bop around, say hi to the people I met. I'm ready for festivals. I miss it.
Yeah, I miss it too. What do you think? You think we're gonna see any of this year? I've seen some lineups, or not some. I don't even know if I've seen any lineups. I've seen some announcements come out, and some tickets go on sale.
Yeah, I don't like summer camp. I think you can even buy tickets still, and I'm just like, I just don't know if I think it's gonna happen. I think if anything happens, it'll be for sure in Florida, based on what Megan says. She's like, yeah, we're planning. I'm like, okay, cool. But then nope, I lost it. I'm like, Florida. I want to be warm again too. That's the thing. It's cold, yucky here, but shit, I just
Florida's a
lost
good
it.
place
Oh
to
yeah,
home.
so I think maybe festivals might happen in Florida, and I think if they happen anywhere else, it'll be really, really small. I'm worried about being able to get tickets to anything because I'm just like,
Mm-hmm.
they're just all gonna sell out right away. Like everyone's
Yeah.
itching. And I know a lot of people are like going through financial hardship, but at the same time, like I did that for 10 years. I was really, really, really poor all the time. I still figured it out. Still figured out a way to get to the show sometimes. So it's just
Yeah,
gonna be
absolutely.
interesting trying to get in anywhere. I don't know. We'll see. I did fair amount this year actually, like as far as drive-ins and like the socially distanced outside stuff, like there's this really sweet venue out here on a river and it's called the Mishawaka and I mean it's just like tables everywhere. They only fit like 150 people with the COVID capacity, but it's outside and people come wait tables so you don't have to go up to get drinks. They come to you and you have
Nice.
like a clear view of the stage and you don't have to hold down your space. I'm like, it's not too bad, but you do pay
That's
a lot more and it feels like I don't like that exclusivity factor when it comes to music because everyone needs access to music, I think.
I
Maybe
agree.
I'm
I
biased.
totally agree.
I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm a crazy person. Maybe I'm too obsessed, but I don't think I'm too obsessed. I think I know people more obsessed. I think it's important to a lot of people to be able to go see music.
Yeah. Music is like the healing. It's healing, it's medicine.
Yeah,
Music
it's
is
them
like
vibrations, It's like a huge piece of it. Uh,
yeah.
well, it's late where you're at, and I don't want to keep you up all night, but are you guys working on any cool projects or anything right now, or is it pretty low key?
Well, so I actually did some drive-ins. I worked for a venue here in town too. And we did like drive-ins basically the entire month of October. So that was really nice. And then I think we're gonna see some of that again in the spring. So that's really exciting.
Yeah, that's
Um, as far as like music stuff goes. So at least there's something. And
yeah,
the drive-ins aren't too bad. I think it's kind of fun for people to like have their car and like all their stuff. And I think it's like a cool new model that might stick around, post COVID, just because it's like
absolutely.
kind of a cool new. I kind of like that model. I like having my car and like all my things and the
I
tailgating
love it. Yeah,
thing. It's
I
so
love it.
fun.
Like, yeah, you're picnicking slash tailgating at a show. It's a very cool atmosphere. Um, so the drive-ins where you're at, do they use your car stereo or do they have actual sound?
No, we did actual sound. We did the main stage PA and then we did two additional PAs and
Yeah,
like some extra um couple
yeah,
of extra
really
screens
cool
to
that.
kind of spread it out. It sounded really good actually. Having like the extra PAs kind of the extra soul speakers kind of spread out through the field made
Yeah,
it sound really good. And yeah, I don't think we mess with the car stereo thing. I don't think yeah. We talked about doing it and I think we always had it as an option in case things
yeah.
failed, but I think like, we kind of got in after those events had been going and I think a lot of artists had already like tried out the FM transmitter and just realized that
That
it didn't like
sucks.
deliver.
Yeah, it's not worth it. Like I mean, it's still a fun atmosphere and you're still hanging out with your friends and like kind of listening to music, but like you're listening to the radio. You know what I mean? It's not the same feeling as like getting hit with sound, like a wall of speakers, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
like, because my town is apparently fucking sociopathic and has a 24-hour noise ordinance. So, like, you can't go above a certain decibel all the time or you like could potentially get in trouble for it. I guess I didn't know that till this summer because then I was like, heck yeah, drive in, live music, loud music, whatever. And then I was like, oh, this is just a mega letdown.
Wow.
It's
Wow. A 24-hour noise ordinance. That
yeah,
is fair.
so weird. And I didn't ever know about it until last year. Like I would have never like I would have almost picked a different town based on that knowledge. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Only
Absolutely.
because like I'm not about anyone infringing on any of my shit. Did they just give you an ad too? Did you get an
It
ad?
was like it was like thanks for choosing. There's no
Yeah.
longer a time limit.
I know, I got like a big thing, it blocked your face. I'm like, what? Uh, um, yeah, it was disappointing. I need big, loud music, I feel like, you know. Um,
If you're gonna, pay for the experience, well,
yeah,
at
I'd
least
work
some of
those
the
events all
experience,
day. Yeah.
you already can't dance, so
Right. I
maybe
know,
give
we
us
were
the
all like
sound.
sitting on a blanket around a little speaker. It was just silly. I'm like, no. I mean, whatever, fine. Oh yeah, that's what I was saying before the pop-up distracted me, was that I don't like living in places that restrict me of my any of my personal sovereignty, be it my eardrums or, psychedelics. Like Denver is decriminalized. That's nice. What's it like in Asheville? Do you know?
Uh, so I know weed's decriminalized, but psychedelics are still illegal here for sure.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
we're in a red, well, we're in a swing state, but we're like pretty much in a red state. I mean,
Right.
North Carolina.
Right.
So we might be one of the first of like the southern states, but our region is definitely going to be like one of the last to embrace that, I think.
Absolutely.
Um, but
It's in
there
the
is like
Bible
some
Belt too.
stuff, there's some like ketamine therapy things, and
Yeah.
there's like some activists around here. So I think it'll come. Just it's not going to come at the rate, same with like legalization. Weed is still illegal here as it is
Yeah.
in all the southern states. So
Yeah.
that'll come maybe in the next 3 years,
Yeah.
and then another 10 years before they start talking about psychedelic medicines, unless it comes down
Right.
federally first.
Hmm.
But there are a lot of advocates here for it, like a lot of therapists who like um, advocate for it, and like
That's good.
are big supporters of it.
Yeah.
And then you've got
Hopefully
like
people with
organized,
money. Because you need
yeah.
money, I feel like, to get any legislation passed these days. Just chuck money at them. Maybe they'll make it legal. I mean, not that I just want everything. I think everything should be able to be legal. I think that people should be able to choose their experience, right? Like I'm not gonna do heroin just because it's legal. I know that it kills people. Now it might not though if it was regulated, and that's the other side to that too, is that if it was legal and regulated, it could potentially be safer. But then you see what happens with the weed industry, and I don't think it's safer, mass produce anything. I don't think it's safer. I think it's safer to do things for yourself, to do it in small scale. Like
Mm-hmm.
once you
But
start drinking.
what it would do though is it would keep it from being like this like thing that you did in a quiet corner. I mean,
Yeah.
because it would change the approach. If we
Yes.
like approach addiction in a way, and I mean, I think it was is it Denmark who did this? Oh shit, I'm forgetting, where they just like made all drugs legal and then
Yeah, and
they
I
pumped
think
a ton
maybe
of money.
Portugal too. I feel like
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. I think that's it, where they just like pumped a bunch of money into like mental health services and like providing that end of things, and kind of like looked at more of the root cause while legalizing everything. So creating more safe environments to even do drugs.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, regulation has its benefits because you're not getting things that are like, you know, contaminated with things like fentanyl, which is a
Right.
huge issue we're experiencing right now.
Exactly.
But it also like doesn't create these like kind of like the stigma that creates an
Like who's
environment
got
in
you?
which people are, doing things, in dark corners because they're afraid to talk about it because they're going to be looked at down upon. There's this whole like social aspect to it too, which is kind of like the same with psychedelics. Which we're seeing with psychedelics. Like at one point in time, all the messaging around LSD was like, oh, it's gonna make you go crazy and jump off a building, or like
You'll
ecstasy is
think
gonna
you're
put
a glass
holes
of
in your
orange
brain.
juice. I always heard that one. You're gonna think you're a glass of orange juice because you drank orange juice. Well, I don't know. I'm like, I don't think that's a thing. I mean, it might be, but for some people, I don't think that's the
Yeah,
norm. It's so
yeah, and not
silly.
like that.
Yeah, well, it's like Reefer Madness, like, have you ever seen that one? Like,
Oh yeah,
it's so ridiculous. I'm like, where do they even come up with this stuff? It's so goofy.
they just make it up.
Yeah,
Um,
just a
but I
bunch
think
of
the power of the internet and the ability to like do research yourself instead of like having television as your main source of information and newspapers your main source of information and media, it's creating like a lot more informed people to advocate for these things now, like we're
Yeah.
seeing with the psychedelic community and with the weed community. You have a lot of really intelligent, well-connected people who are advocating for these things, and a lot more people who are vocal in the support of it. It's not as much, it's like it's kind of finding air to breathe and room to grow, the support
Absolutely.
it needs to, and people like us, who believe in the importance of those safe spaces and those safe experiences, because we've had them and we know that they're not what has been publicized about it. We know that all that publication is like lies.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. It's and it can be scary. I think ignorance is where this scary part of it is, like that, because other people don't know how to handle it, so you can't talk to anyone. No matter what it is, it could be even alcohol abuse or addiction, and for some reason, if there's a stigma, then no one wants to, there's been a stigma against it, so now no one wants to talk about it, and now nothing can get better. It's like we have
exactly.
to be able to work through it, and it's going to be uncomfortable and icky probably, but it'll be better in the end. Oh
Mm-hmm.
man, I look forward to the day when our society is like freely discovering like themselves, because I think that's what it is when you do psychedelics, you're kind of discovering yourself, whereas when you do like, I don't know, even just drinking, it just kind of disassociates you and puts a fog up instead of like making you feel more connected to yourself or anyone else. I don't know. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like society will be better when more people can do these things comfortably. I always am like,
Mm-hmm.
I want to give my mom some mushrooms real bad. But I don't think she could handle it. I mean, not yet. She'd have to like do a lot of preparation, which should be done, right? Like, I mean, a lot of cultures will, use these as like ceremonial substances, so we shouldn't probably
Mm-hmm.
take them for granted. But
Yeah.
oh man, like I said, I'm gonna have to pick your brain like a whole heck of a lot more, because this is like a huge, like I'm like, oh man, that is so cool. I could go on for days. Well, I should listen for days, but I tend to like when I get excited, then like of course I ramble and talk all out and stuff like a Spanish. But that is so cool that you do that, and that was louder than anticipated. And I hope that we can meet at some point at some festival. I want to start working festivals generally. I don't know what
Mm-hmm.
yet, like doing what yet, but I do. I want. Yeah, I volunteered at Soulshine too 1 year at summer camp.
Ah,
Like I just
nice.
volunteered though I wasn't working, and it was super rad, but I wasn't working, so it still felt kind of like an outsider. You know what I mean? Like not
Mhm.
actually
On
working.
the
I don't know.
inside.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know.
It's a cool. There's some really amazing people who work in that department that are just like really passionate about like about like healing and connection and like the things that it seems like you're passionate about. We're passionate about. If you
Yeah,
ever want to come work for Harmonia, if you're trained in de-escalation, baby, I mean you're more qualified
really?
than
That would
a
be
lot of us. So.
freaking rad. And I would even like I have so many resources for like that specifically because of what I was doing before. So yes, I'll be in touch for sure, because like that's definitely something I've wanted to do for a minute, like since 2016. Yeah.
Yeah, we're honestly always looking for like solid people who like kind of know what they're doing in the ways of de-escalation in intense situations, because like not
Yeah.
everyone is kind of cut out for that. It doesn't take a lot. It just takes like a certain level of like under
Level-headedness.
level-headedness, and compassion and
Yeah.
support. I mean, that's really all it is. We have like some really just like nice, down to earth, compassionate people who are amazing. If they don't
Yeah.
have any professional training, they understand because they've been there, and then
Mhm.
they also like really care and have a lot of patience, and
Yeah.
and then you kind of like learn through experience. Like this is something like not a lot of people have training in unless you've helped your friends a couple of times,
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
if you know what it looks like to not be
Yeah.
afraid of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then like be able to keep everyone, that's always my biggest thing is like, how do you keep everyone safe? I bet it's not like, it's probably not, I mean, I guess you could tell me, is there like a whole lot of aggression or is it more just like amplified emotions?
Honestly, if things start getting aggressive, our protocol is to send that up the
Security.
chain. We'll bring security in to
Yeah.
help, or like, but usually we can get the aggressive people subdued because of our approach. Usually they can become aggressive just because someone else is being aggressive with them. Where like
Absolutely.
if they um whereas like once we kind of get our hands on them, they feel heard and understood and not scared, because a lot of times aggression comes from fear. But
Yeah.
then you also have like the other things, where if like in Florida you've got a lot of bath salts and you've got some weird like research chemicals that just make people aggressive, and unfortunately sometimes there's not a lot we can do for those people, and they just have to like go through the process of getting restrained and
Yeah.
until the reaction wears off. And then if they didn't get kicked out of the festival, we'll rehabilitate them and reintegrate them.
Right.
So that's kind of like where we can support in those situations. But it's like as soon as things start getting like pretty aggressive and like out of control, if they get there, we just like, you need to get in here. Okay. We just like get a little. Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
No, you were just saying that like if it does get aggressive for some reason that you have security take care of it, right? And that
Yeah,
makes sense. Like you're only a person just like everyone else and we're all trying to figure it out, and sometimes there's not a solution, especially like you say, if there's like research chemicals and bath salts and stuff like that, like that's not psychedelics. That's not going to be, like you're just not, I mean, you might be able to do the same thing at some point once they're like in a different state of mind. But like, I bet at the peak, like there's not a lot you can do about some of these drugs, right? Like,
yeah. I mean, you don't really want to like. I mean, our goal is not to like control and influence your experience. It's just like kind of hold space so you can have it safely. And what what we've noticed, is that a lot of times like fear and aggression come from like feelings of like overwhelm and feeling scared.
yeah,
If you're scared, you're going to be defensive. It's fight or flight. It comes down to these like basic neurological functions.
yeah,
Whereas like once we create like kind of a safe space,
hmm,
that aggression tends to melt away.
yeah,
Not all the time, but like a vast majority of the time.
yeah,
Sometimes it takes some time to get there, but like ultimately, ultimately they will
yeah.
if the
And
drug
the
wears off.
longest it's going to be is 8 hours or so ish, hopefully.
Yeah.
Usually, I mean, depending on the situation, I'm certain it can be different, but 6 to 8 usually.
Yeah.
Shoot, there was one more. Oh, do you like walk around with them or do you only stay in your zone?
It kind of depends. I mean, we like because of the nature of festivals and drugs and things, like we have some like safety protocols that we have in place that like because like if you walk around a festival with someone and then they bolt, and you don't know what happens to them, that or you could be putting yourself in a situation, we don't know who these people are. So if we feel like it's necessary, we'll send like a group of like a pair to go and like help this person out. But usually we try and just keep them contained, just like out of safety for themselves and for us, until they're into a place. And then we try and reintegrate them back into the festival as much as possible. But a lot of times it can be more stimulating, which could be counterproductive to like trying to get them to a point of homeostasis.
Yeah.
A lot of lights and people and
Yeah.
things happening, and then
Yeah.
like you also don't want them to like get their hands on more drugs and redose before they kind of come down. So like
Yeah.
there's a lot of things to consider before taking someone on a walk. But sometimes we will, it's kind of a case by case thing. But we really do place a lot of emphasis on like our safety and then the safety of the people that we're with. So we try and make, try and just keep everyone in the same space where we have access to security and medical professionals.
Yeah.
Because then you also like most cases you don't know what someone's taken, and most cases people have taken more than one thing.
Sure.
You know, like
Yeah.
it's very rare that you get someone who's only had one thing, although where they've probably have been mixing multiple things, and there's no way to ever know what those things are. So you don't want them to like, you know, there's just like so many possibilities.
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
kind of like a contained safe space, so that they can like regain full consciousness.
Yeah.
That's kind of the goal.
Yeah.
They can be back in the driver's seat, so then they can go out there and, you know, go back to having fun.
Yeah. That's so cool. God, you are doing God's work for real. For real. Because people really mishandle some situations, I will say, involving these things. And it can really, really mess person up for a little bit, you know, or a long time,
For
depending
a
on
long
the
time,
situation, you know.
absolutely.
So you really are. You're
Like
doing
trauma if it's inflicted.
it's fucked.
Yeah.
Like it's really like very treacherous. What I've seen anyway. And I'm not even an extreme person, right? Like I don't know. It's just interesting the world we live in. But you really are. You're doing the Lord's work because it's so important and people underestimate it, but it's so important. It's really huge.
Yeah. Well,
But,
appreciate
sorry.
the understanding, and you know, I think no,
I'm
it's
like,
great. I love how excited you are about it. I want you to come and work for us and be on our team. We need more people like you.
yeah.
You know.
Oh, I'm into it. I'm already like, okay, yes, that's a thing I will be doing. I obviously I want to do the work and the studies and everything, but I am in because I don't know. I feel like I would be good at it too, just based on like working with kids. And because to work with kids, you have to be kind of intuitive about just like what emotion, you know, like sometimes
It's basically like working with kids.
yeah. Like sometimes a kid is crying and really he just needs to eat an apple. You know, like sometimes they just need a blanket or a cup of water, you know.
And
And
that's like so much of what it is. It's like you get into our care and we're like, when was the last time you drank water? Okay, here's some water. 9 times out of 10, water, like just like drinking water will get people to like drop down a level. You know?
yeah.
But it is just like that. Like I feel like when are that like messed up, they kind of revert to like a childlike state where they can like not really take care of themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're basically, you know, and then they pee on themselves, they shit themselves, they vomit. Like you just get all the body fluids,
Yeah.
all the things.
Oh yeah, which is also something I have a lot of experience with.
Exactly those.
2 children and work with kids. We're good. I can handle all of this stuff. I used to get punched in the face at work on the daily. Like we're good. I'm down. I'm down. But yeah. Oh my God, it was so good to talk to you. I'm stoked. I don't want to eat. I'm like, it's 10 or what? 10 o'clock there? Is it 10?
Yeah, it's about to be 10. That's
like,
okay. I don't mind chatting.
Do you work a day
Nice
job or what are
you.
you doing now since there's not festivals? Oh, sorry.
Well, since not festivals right now. What?
We were like
What'd you say?
glitching. We were glitching for a second and I was like, wait, I could tell you're saying something, but I don't know what it is. But you said since there's not festivals right now, what are you doing?
I've gone into the hemp industry, so I'm doing marketing for a hemp company.
Cool.
Which I feel like a lot of people in the music industry have now moved into the weed industry.
Yeah, that makes sense. Funny. Makes
sense. But weed's not legal here, so we have hemp. So I'm doing that. Harmonia has pretty much taken a hiatus as well. We're kind of like, you know, it's kind of nice to have a break after being on the road for 5 years straight, basically. So
yeah,
we chilling. We're like, you know, our big thing that we're doing is Harmonia right now, which isn't like a huge thing, but it's like passing out fentanyl strips and kind of just spreading some information about fentanyl and preventative measures for fentanyl, like fentanyl test strips, which test test your shit, everybody.
No shit. That is like the number one. Like if I don't know who we need to go to, like the high schools, the colleges, somewhere. I don't know when too early is too early to say to these people, test your shit. Test your fucking shit. If you're going to do anything, test it.
Yeah.
Because it could just save so many lives.
Never too early.
Yeah, like I mean,
Yeah.
exactly. And I always feel like people are gonna be like, "Oh, you're giving them ideas." I'm like, no, this is like just what kids do. Is like experiment, and then they
No,
wind
if
up
they're gonna
dead.
find drugs, they're gonna do. You
Exactly.
know, abstinence is never the answer. Prohibition doesn't work. Like
Exactly.
education, empowerment through education,
Mhm.
educated decision making, freedom of consciousness, like all of these things.
Exactly.
Like, gotta educate. And I mean, and it will save lives because
Mhm.
ultimately, again, it goes back to those issues we were talking about people like hiding what they're doing and doing it in closed corners and getting shit from sketchy people and just like, you know,
Yeah.
then they end up dead and everyone's like, oh my God, you know, and when the reality is like we could have better systems in place to deal with all of it.
Absolutely. I mean, I know situations where myself or friends of mine could have died buying weed. You know what I mean? Like just because it's illegal. And that's where my head's I'm like, this just doesn't make sense to me. Like I have to go to like some sketchy ass I'm thought of that because my friend, another woman that I interviewed a few weeks back, she posted today that like people are just like hitting her up on Facebook Messenger like with these creeper statuses and stuff, and it's just like, what is this the world coming to? Like why are people like this? But I think it's like no one knows how to communicate the right way. No one has like a honest education. Everyone thought abstinence was the way to teach for like forever, and now everyone's like doesn't know how to act about anything. There was a reason I brought that up though specifically. Oh, because it was a weed guy. She was buying weed. And like so now he has her real phone number. And so now he's like hitting her up, or maybe not a real phone number, maybe it's on like a different app or something. I don't know how that works. I live in Colorado.
You've got a direct line of communication to her.
Exactly. And then like starts hitting her up with all these super creepy messages and stuff. And I'm just like, this is why it needs to be legal, people. Like just simply so a kid can smoke some herb without fucking possibly being abducted the next know what I mean? Like
being creeped on and being put in uncomfortable situations.
It's gross. It's gross.
Yeah.
And it's because you're in a vulnerable situation, and you are to begin with when you're buying something that's illegal, right? Like that's kind of the name of the game, which is why it would be grand if they would just drop all this fucking nonsense. But here we are, 2021. Maybe next.
We're getting there though. There's been a lot of really like more states this year have legalized weed than like ever before. And then, like this whole psychedelic revolution that's upon us, and the opiates too. They're getting a lot of love. There's like a lot of opiate. There's a lot of like harm reduction nonprofits that are popping up all over the place to like address some of these bigger like addiction problems with like the harder drugs like opiates and methamphetamine. It's not perfect yet, but like it's happening. There's a movement happening right now, which I think is going to yield some really positive results for like children of the future. Like the older generations might not benefit as much from it, but I think there's going to be a lot more in place for the younger generations coming up. Coming into it, a lot more opportunity for education. There's just so much more information out there. Like I know when I was like younger and in high school, I was afraid to Google like anything about weed.
Absolutely.
And now it's just like there's so much freaking information on like how to put like there's like cookbooks on weed and all this like crazy shit on literally every subject to do with like weed, and even like psychedelics are starting to get there now, or there's like a lot of literature coming, a lot of studies. I saw on Amazon a psychedelic psilocybin cookbook being advertised.
Yeah, that's rad.
I was like, well, Amazon, okay.
Oh my gosh, can you imagine
Like,
the day? Yeah. Here's some spores, grow your own. Thanks, Amazon.
yeah.
I'm down.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that day is coming, and I really do. Maybe, maybe not ordering spores on Amazon, but maybe, you know,
Hey,
I
if
wouldn't put it
they
past
find a
Amazon. They
way,
got their fingers and everything.
yeah, I'm like, if they find a way to make money off of it, they probably will. I
Yeah.
wouldn't be surprised if Jeff Bezos owned a bunch of these like cannabis corporations. I'm talking about, like Green Solution. That one comes to mind. They're just like these Walmarts of weed, and it's so bad. It's so bad. And it's because of the
Yeah.
demand, but it's just bad. I could totally imagine him getting on board with one of those, just like mass delivering with
Oh
their
yeah.
fucking drones or some shit. I don't know. It's weird, but I'm okay with
Oh my
it
God.
as long as we can get there. As long as I'm not going to jail for having an eighth of weed. That's how it was. I'm from Indiana, so like I was always super
Right.
scared. I was that kid that was like sheltered forever, totally like miseducated, misinformed, and then went to college and was a total moron, just like spaz about all of it, all things, right? Like drank too much, started smoking cigarettes, like all this stuff just because like I was trying it all because I didn't say no to anything. And it's like you were supposed to like test things like you said. And like, there's just this whole situation where like I could have been safer about every step of it. And thank God nothing really happened other than me getting pregnant at 20 or at 19. But other than that, I didn't die. But it's
Oh,
so
wow.
like sketchy. And I'm
Other
like,
than this huge life changing circumstance.
yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I would be dead if I didn't have my 12-year-old.
Yeah.
So now I have a 12-year-old and a 1-year-old. But I would have died if I didn't have him. You know what I mean? Like, that's just the way my life was going at the time. And it wasn't even, it was just like, that's the environment you're in when you're in college. Like, it's everywhere. Everything was everywhere. I'm like, where do you people get this stuff? And how do you have money to spend on anything? But when your friends have it, if they offer it to you, it's hard to say no sometimes. So it'd be nice if people
Hmm.
would like educate people that age on how to at least not die in the process of
Like like
experimenting.
it's cool to do, like, yeah, it's cool to do drugs, but cooler to do drugs safely, in like educated ways and situations.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's just like
Yeah.
drinking, if people go out and get wasted anymore, I kind of look at them like go out and get wasted and then drive, I'm like, see, I'm not down with that. Like, you shouldn't be blacked out driving. I don't know. Like,
No.
I'm okay with getting blacked out. Just don't drive. Like, don't put other people at risk. But again, when you black out, you don't
Right.
really know that you're driving, I think sometimes. And so then it's hard to be
Yeah.
responsible
Or
for
maybe you
yourself.
think you're okay and you're
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So weird.
Judgment. Your judgment's just not great.
Yep. And that's
Mm.
another thing I could have benefited from learning, like just that, lowered inhibitions means that you're going to think you can drive, even though
Mm.
you shouldn't be driving, like I think that whole conversation should be approached differently too. But that is such a different thing because it's so highly accepted in our culture that it's really like, oh, call an Uber, conversation over. This is a little different.
Mm.
I'm like interested. I want to see. I mean, this episode won't even air till June, but I'm like, I want to see what the comments are gonna be.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm pretty excited. This has been a really fun conversation.
yeah, I'm pumped. I'm like, I am too excited because I know I like keep cutting you off because I'm like my internet I think is laggy, so I'm like thinking you're done and then I'm like because I'm excited and then I'm like shit I just totally did it again, cool. But I
I think
I'm
that's kind
pumped.
of the nature of these conversations, that are on the internet where we have like some lag time and then,
Yeah. And it's like, I'm
with you.
sorry, I don't
It's fine.
control
I'm
this.
not offended.
I don't control this. I shouldn't really be doing a podcast in the first place because I'm so technologically declined. But I needed to talk to people, I think, is what happened because of COVID. I
Uh,
was like,
yeah, that's great. I mean,
yeah,
more power to you.
yeah,
No way to like get caught up than by like learning by doing, you know.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's the only way I ever learn anyway. I have to make a million stupid mistakes, like personally. You could tell me all your stupid mistakes so that I could hopefully learn from them, but that's usually not what happens. I'm like, oh yeah, I knew that. I should have done better.
Oh, this is why they said to do that. Okay.
Yeah. It makes sense now. Why didn't you say why? That has gotten me a lot in my life, you know. Now, only now that I'm almost 33 years old am I realizing like I should have, like, that's how I need to handle my kids, is tell them what to do, but then also explain why it is we're doing it that way. Because if you don't, this or that will happen. Whereas I feel like when I was growing up, it was like, don't do that. And that was it. And then I grew up and was like, oh shit, that makes more sense. Okay. I should have listened.
Education is powerful.
Exactly.
Like the
Exactly.
more
And
you know.
yeah, and it starts by teaching people how to think, because I definitely was raised, no offense, Catholics, but I was raised Catholic and I was not taught how to think for myself at all. I was taught how to like listen, you know, for the most part, which you would be shocked because it seems like I'm terrible at listening based on how many times I cut people off. So it makes sense. But that's all.
Listen,
Like you do what you're told, you know, and you shut up, you sit down and shut up. So
yeah,
yeah,
totally.
hopefully we get out of that mold too. Because I'm like, no one should be sitting down and shutting up. Everyone should be loud and do what they want to do. If you want quiet, then definitely go like throw some headphones on and your little face mask thing, you know, get some quiet.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, freedom to like live how we want and to
Mhm.
like not be afraid of like the experience of life, which I think is kind of a lot of what religion teaches. It's like fear everything, but this one like narrow path. Because I was raised Baptist in the Northeast, and like pretty strict conservative family, and you know, which is probably why I like rebelled so hard.
Yeah.
Maybe why you did too. You
Yep.
know, we like rebelled so hard, but we were so uneducated about what we were rebelling against. You know, that it might have got us into some precarious situations. And now that we've learned, we want to bestow education to people who might benefit to keep them from getting into like dangerous situations or sketchy situations, you know? Because
Exactly.
like,
And like you say, you can't stop them all, but you could definitely help some people along the way.
yeah, or just like make more intentional decisions. I think that's like our biggest tenet, you know, with Harmonia. It's like empowerment through education. It's like, you know, you can make your own decisions, just like make informed decisions, you know? It's like, yeah, you can eat those drugs, but like, how much are you eating and like, where are you and who are you around, you know? There's
And
all
how
these factors
often?
that play into it.
Yeah,
And you could have a really amazing time if you just kind of like pay attention to these couple of things.
yeah,
Um,
exactly. I think too, when people are experimenting and dabbling, they don't like, because it's so in the moment, they just like kind of trust their friends and what they think is the right prescription for whatever they're doing, you know? And it's like
mhm.
everyone's body is
Or they
different.
want to be cool, and that's what the cool kids are doing, or like, you know, whatever that perception is.
Yeah, yeah. And it's so like
You know,
everyone's body is different, everyone's gonna react differently. So like you have to like do the research first. And then if you run into it, you know what you want to do, or you know the situation. I don't know. There's got to be a better way, right? Like we got to stop losing kids to like you said, fentanyl or you know that shit.
yeah, yeah, it's so hard. We just lost someone who's like really close to, like, really big supporter of like what we do and really close in our community. Like, died from an accidental like fentanyl overdose from like contaminated substance, and you know, it's like, you know, like they didn't have it just sucks because like it didn't have to happen like that, you know, but
Yeah.
because someone was careless and because of the state of things, a bunch of stuff that was like not, they weren't an opiate user. They weren't like someone who like, you know, we were suspicious of potentially overdosing. It was completely accidental, and like it's just like that shouldn't be happening, and it's like so frustrating.
Yeah,
It's
because it's like,
huge.
it's so far reaching. It could be a kid, it could be a 15-year-old kid, or it
Could
can
have
be a
literally been like
60-year-old dude.
anyone,
Yeah.
any of us, any kids, anyone.
Mhm.
I think that's like such a scary thing with like the fentanyl. It's like worse than the bath salts now. It's because it's like so deadly at such a small thing. Like
Yeah,
such a small amount of it is deadly to someone who has no tolerance to opiates.
right. That's what blows my mind. Because isn't that is not if was it not fentanyl that killed Michael Jackson?
Mm, it might have been.
I
I
can't
don't know.
remember. I feel like that's been what, like a couple of these more like in the last 2 decades or so. I feel like that have been some of um the deaths, and I could be wrong, but I feel like there's a medical reason for fentanyl, right? Like it's a thing, right? Like that's why it's a thing.
Yeah. So fentanyl is like it's a really high, it's a really strong opiate.
Hmm.
Like oxycontin, but like times like a lot, like times 100.
Yeah.
And it's used for like cancer patients and people who are like undergoing who have like really painful, um, who just like need really high powered like opiates and high powered painkillers. So it's used medically, um, but it's also like gotten into there's opiate users who do it recreationally as well, you know.
Yikes. I can't
And
imagine.
they just have like tolerances. We can build a high tolerance for opiates, and
Yeah.
um, I mean, I think that's like some of what happened in this one situation. It's like, someone was getting, and I guess I know you wanted to talk about music, but we're talking about drugs. But I also like think it's really cool because I think this information is important for people to know. It's like, at one point I thought it was like I couldn't fathom why, fentanyl was getting into things like cocaine or like
Yeah.
ketamine. Then, but what I've kind of come to understand through various like talking and hearing some stories is that like, there are these people, these dealers who are opiate users, and it's not, and this isn't to shame opiate users or people who do fentanyl recreationally, because I feel like you can, as long as you know what you're doing, like do whatever the fuck you want. So when it's the case of like someone consuming something and not knowing where it
Hmm.
kills them, we have
Yeah.
a problem.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
there's these, opiate users who also like sell other things, who will, weigh out their fentanyl for their heroin clients or their opiate clients or for themselves, to do recreationally, and then like they don't completely clean off the scale and they weigh something else on top of it. So potent, it's such a small amount, then they pass it off to someone who has no tolerance to that kind of a thing, and then they're mixing it with cocaine, which is like, which is a death sentence in itself.
Mhm.
And there you have it, a dead person. Not
Yeah.
to be not sympathetic about it, just like
No, it's just so
it's a
avoidable.
reality we're kind of dealing with now.
Hmm. I mean,
And it's
yeah,
so
it's totally
sad.
avoidable too, and that's what's so sad about it. It's just that, like, like you said, it doesn't have to go down that way. Um, so these fentanyl strips fentanyl, is it fentanyl? Fentanyl. Am I saying it wrong?
Fentanyl, like
Fentanyl.
fentanyl, so it's spelled like FENTANYL.
Okay.
Fentanyl,
Fentanyl.
fentanyl.
Well, shit, now I forgot.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
like,
I distracted myself with the
no.
word. Mm,
Oh, you're asking about the strip,
oh
the test
yeah,
strip.
yeah. So how you would test any substance that you have and it would tell you if there's fentanyl in it? Is that what it is? Is that a thing, I guess is what I'm asking?
Yeah. So, um, Yeah, so actually, hold on, I'll grab and I'll do a little demo for
Yeah.
here on camera. I'm actually creating a video for this purpose as well. So I've got a little spiel all ready for you.
Mm-hmm.
Go over here. Oh, our kitty being crazy. So you can get fentanyl test strips through like a lot of local harm reduction organizations, like needle exchanges or places in the community that like have safe injection sites, or they do they give out Narcan, you know, those kinds of organizations. And there's a lot of them. If you like look up, you know, local harm reduction organization, you'll probably be able to find, like with your area, probably be able to find some nearby that like give these away. But basically there's these little strips. They kind of look like pregnancy tests a little bit. There's like little, there we go. So they look like this. And can you see it okay in the frame?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you take it and so the first thing you want to do, again, remember like fentanyl is like super potent, like a couple of grains of sand, an amount of like a couple of grains of sand will like kill you if you don't have, you know, a tolerance. So I don't know if you're familiar with like the regular test kits that you can get from like DanceSafe or Bunk Police that are reagent kits, where you like take a little bit of your substance and then do the dropper and it kind of does the color change and tells you what you have. These are different because you have to actually test your entire bag of something. So if you've got like a bag of cocaine or you got a bag of ketamine, like you need to test the entire thing, because if you just test a small amount of it, there still could be a small amount that you didn't test of fentanyl, and it could come back positive or it could come back negative, the test, but there's still fentanyl in your bag because you didn't actually like get to the little grains of sand.
Yeah. That's fair.
So what it'll do, and then there's instructions, and DanceSafe's a really good resource. You can actually buy these from DanceSafe on their website, and then they come with like this really nice like long instruction thing on how to use them. But basically you want to, depending on how much substance you have, take like a glass or a shot glass and put your gram or whatever in there, and then soak it in water, and then dip in your little test strip. And it tells you there's some lines here that tell you, dip it until here, and then you let it sit for like 60 seconds, and then it'll kind of show lines, kind of like a pregnancy test. That's why I say it's like a pregnancy test. It's like one line is a positive test and 2 lines is a negative test. It's a little counterintuitive to what you would think it would be, but so you just dip it in, wait for it to run the test, and then once you see that it's safe, then you can draw your substance back out, or you can put it in a nasal spray bottle, or you can also drink it. I don't know if people know that you can drink cocaine and ketamine, but you can. So there's like a couple of ways you can consume it once you saturate your substance, but you could also just dry it out on like a plate or something, and or boil it out or whatever, and that's like a totally perfectly acceptable way of consuming it. But the important thing is like test the whole thing. It's like I think the biggest thing.
Absolutely. And that's so cool. I didn't even know those things existed, but that is like the truth, is that you need to test every bit of it. Like I didn't realize how little fentanyl, how small of an amount could kill you. And I'm pretty convinced that that's what killed Michael Jackson, now that we're talking about it more. Because if it's medical too, like if they use it in the medical profession, I'm pretty sure his doctor, I think he messed up a prescription and combined things that shouldn't have been, and like overdid it on other, but I don't know. I'm no scientist and I'm no doctor. I just remember hearing that back in the day. And that was a while ago. That was like 2009.
We all have our suspicions about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think we all kind of have our own theories and suspicions about what happened there, but yeah, fentanyl at a small dose is pretty lethal. especially for people who aren't used to doing that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And the other scary thing about it, that since this is video and we're live, and I think this information is important to know, is like Narcan. Are you familiar with Narcan? What Narcan is? Basically reverses an opiate overdose by like
No.
binding to your opiate receptors and pretty much pulling out the opiates. It comes in like a needle form. It also comes in like a nasal spray form, and you can also get those from your local harm reduction organizations. Steady Collective is one I can think of. I don't think Dent Saves does Narcan. I think they're really focused on testing, but there are like lots of local organizations, especially in places that have high opiate use, that give these out. And usually one to two shots of Narcan will revive someone who's like had a heroin overdose. But a fentanyl overdose, you need like at least 2, if not 3. One shot will not revive somebody.
Jeez.
So we're dealing with like a whole other level of
opiate. I know, I'm like getting goosebumps thinking about it, because like that was never me, right? Like I'm not big into the powdery substances. Haven't been, they just don't agree with me, most of them. And so that's never been me, but I've watched it. Like I've watched opiate abuse and addiction. Like my roommate did it when I was 21, right? And she would just like nod off, and I'm just like, are you good? And I didn't even understand what was happening there. So like then to imagine like a kid like her, because she was only like, if I was 21 or 22, she was 18 or 19, you know what I mean? Like she is lucky to be alive, probably, based on that. It's just crazy. It blows my mind that I just can't even get over it, that fentanyl is that powerful. And yikes that it's just getting mixed into like the opposite. Yeah, like what? And that's why I go back to like, maybe it does need to be regulated. And then like you have like a pharmaceutical person, pharmacists treat drugs that way, right? Like when they have gloves on, right? And they're like very meticulous about their distribution, and there's a good reason for that, and I don't know. It was really sad in Indiana too, because like you said, it was meth and opiates, a lot of meth and a lot of opiates, and it was just like so scary. Well, and then of course, like I feel like in this day and age, it's always some kind of pill, right? Like there's always some kind of pill some kid got out of the medicine cabinet or something, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, totally. Totally.
It's so sketchy.
Yeah.
So
yeah, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on. So that's on, the more you know, the more you can protect yourself. Sorry, I've got you balanced on something that's not really. But yeah, didn't mean for that to take a dark turn. But I also like feel like, especially because like my friend's death's super new, and that's kind of like sparked, because like with Harmonia, we kind of haven't been doing much, and then like there's been a couple of fentanyl related things that have happened, drugs, deaths that have happened in our community, where I'm like, okay, well, I guess there's a new need now, because we're not all meeting, but and you don't have like festivals to really, where like a lot of information can get spread through word of mouth. So like having these platforms like the podcast platform and like the other things that we're doing, I think is important to just like get this messaging out there to regular people.
Yeah, I'm so excited.
Who might not know, but indulging in other things, recreationally.
Yeah. I'm stoked to provide that platform for sure. And I already am like, will you come back on sometimes?
Yeah, totally.
It's so important. Like you said, it's so important. And I'm down to talk about it all day, because it's stigmatized, not stigmatized. There's a stigma. I don't know if it's stigmatized or not, but there's a stigma against all of these things, right? And that is like, it needs to start somewhere, I suppose. And if I have to be the the dorky mom that's talking to people about it, then I will be. But it's kind of silly. It seems like we should be well beyond this by now. But I'm so stoked to be able to talk to you about it, and I appreciate you hanging out with me. I will let you go. It is like I've kept you for quite a while.
Yeah, I don't know
But
how long these usually are for you, but once
hey,
I get
sometimes
talking
they're
about this
20
stuff, it's just
minutes. Yeah, sometimes they're 20 minutes and sometimes they're 2 hours. So this has been golden. This has been very awesome. I mean, they're all awesome. The short ones are awesome too, but like you always know there's something there when it's going on 2 hours, you know. And I like, yeah, I super appreciate you being here. And please like send me all of the information that you want, you know, included when the episode premieres so people know where to find Harmonia and how to support maybe and stuff like that so that we can really spread the word. I'm also involved with Groove Safe and I feel like that would be a cool pairing. I don't know if you know Groove Safe at all, but they're about like at I guess another aside before we go. Ashley Driscoll started it and it's just to, you know, allow people to feel safe in their own space when they're at shows, like to prevent unwanted touching at shows and like
okay,
bring
cool.
awareness to people like that's even a thing. You know, a lot of people don't even realize that that happens, which is so funny to me. So anyway, I feel like that would be a cool pairing, like Harmonia with Groove Safe, you know, maybe do an event like a self wellness check event or something, you know what I mean? Where it's just like, are you aware of how, you know, you maintain your space and you maintain yourself and you maintain the substances you're, you know, putting in your body and all these things, you know, it's all pretty.
Yeah. Yeah, we're super big supporters of like consent based endeavors.
Yeah.
So super on board to like meet them and chat with them and
Yeah. Yes, that would be great.
because there's definitely a little bit of overlap, you know.
Mhm.
Not in
Yeah, because if you're like around people who are partying, then you're around people who are like kind of maybe getting a little promiscuous and people who think they can take advantage of the situation and you know what I mean, everyone in between. So yeah, I think that would be a cool overlap. But I like I said, I'm gonna probably be hitting you up soon. So because I'm like
okay,
this is
yeah,
so
please
cool.
do. This was really fun. Love
Yeah,
to get
yeah.
deeper.
It was so good to meet you. I'm stoked. Yeah, that was so great. Thank you. Thank you for being here. And we will definitely be talking soon. Have a good night.
Yeah, thank you so much, Allyce. I hope you have a great night too. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
reaching out.
Thanks.
And
We'll
let's
see
keep
you.
in touch.
Yes, definitely. Bye.